All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon. Hopefully, it's not the middle of the night for you, my poor loves. Hello, my name is Jessica Rose. And if you're just joining us with no context at all, let me very briefly explain what you're doing. So, my colleague Ramon and I, we run a free web development boot camp where we add some strings and a Discord and some other nice things around the existing free code camp curriculum. And what we're doing right now is we are finishing up the second week, but just to reiterate, if you want to join us, the videos stay up on YouTube. They're never going to, they won't go away for the foreseeable future. I don't know about the long term archival quality of YouTube. The videos of these broadcasts will stay up on YouTube. Our Discord remains live. Let me grab that. And you can get to that at bit.ly/bwc-discord-live. And you can come over to the forum. It's bit.ly again, bwc/bootcamp/forum. So even if you're joining us late, it's super chill. All these things aren't going to go away. So we've got our second week. All right, we're in the responsive web design. And fortunately, I've been alternating with my fabulous co-teacher. So I haven't done all these. But we together should be right about here. We're going to learn about accessibility by building a quiz. And accessibility is a suite of practices, it can be a suite of tools. It's an approach to building, not just for the web, but building anything that means that people from all different needs and all different perspectives, and people using assistive technology, people with disabilities, people with temporary disabilities, it means that you're making your website as accessible to people as possible. So we're going to be building a quiz. So I bet we're going to be doing forms again. So y'all are going to have to help me a lot. You remember I'm rubbish at forms. But we're also going to learn about some accessibility tools. Keyboard shortcuts are when you set a shortcut to navigate instead of using a mouse for folks who don't want to or can't use a mouse right now. ARIA attributes, and I actually have an assistant. Bubba's. ARIA, come here, Bubba. I'm so sorry. I call all of my cats Bubba for an absolutely mysterious reason that is unknown even to myself. ARIA attributes are like a little tiny additional Easter egg built into the web. And thank you, Missy. Ha! I have a guest here today. Thank you. And this is my cat. Oh, who does not want to be in this shot? I respect that. This is my cat, Aria, who's named Aria because she's able to, a lot of cat butt, get into anything in the house. She is very, very capable at access. And unfortunately for me, she helps her brothers access things. So she'll go and open a cabinet door. So she's really out here providing an additional layer of access for my other cats to do crimes. Heck, everything's fine. And we're also going to learn about design best practices. And we've heard about best practices before. Best practices are a suite of formal or informal rules that are just sort of agreed upon within the tech industry or agreed upon in web development to say, hey, we think this is the best way to do things. Let's give this a shot. Okay. So we're going to build this quiz. Oh, I bet we're going to build this top bar. I bet that's going to be important. Oh, look at this. So we've got field set elements, label nesting, I bet. Okay, so this actually looks like we might not finish it all, but how many? So the first step is, so they've done our boilerplate this time. They say, you know what? We don't want to bog you down. We don't want to waste your time. We've done these parts. We're going to set our lang attribute. And one of the reasons the lang attribute is so important is that it tells screen readers where they are so far as language. If you are a screen reader user and your primary language is Spanish, you get to an English web page, it'll tell you right away. And you say, oh, you know what? I don't actually need that. That's okay for me. So add the lang attribute to our HTML element. So this is our HTML element right here. And we're going to set our lang to English. It's going to sound like I'm picking on somebody, but I'm being very, very excited about it. We had some great questions. Noob is asking how many cats I have. I have 3, which is too many cats. But in my defense, they were adopted. They all came together as a batch set. I did not set out in the world to have 3 cats. I pictured a different life for myself. So, our language is set to English, and we got asked yesterday where these codes come from, and these are based on the ISO standards. So standards are we heard a little bit from Bruce about HTML standards and CSS standards. They're sort of an agreed on process. Check our code, everything's fine. Standards that are agreed on process of, oh, we agree this is how we handle languages. So we're going to add a meta element with an appropriate char set value. Okay, it's not even to tell us. Oh, meta. Wait, no, meta self-closing. I'm being an early morning goofball. And meta, our char set is set to UTF. We'll do it caps just to mention UTF-8. Oh. Does it need a trailing slash? It doesn't. Meta. Oh, y'all are as patient as the day is long. Let's go ahead and type that correctly, and then everything works. So we're going to set our viewpoint definition. And do you know what? We're going to put this in a meta tag as well. I have been doing this for an almost embarrassing amount of time, but I always just go and copy and paste the. So I know that it's content width equals device width and the initial scale is 1, but somehow when my brain wants me to type that, it always just sort of. Oh, we set the name to viewport as well. Everything is just fine. We're going to pop on. Let's keep going. Cool. And this is just a little reminder. So the boot camp is completely free. We don't have a way for you to pay us. We don't want you to pay us. And free code camp is completely free. It's in the name. But they, not us, separate teams, are a registered charity. So if you've got $5 a month, it can be really nice to donate, but there's no obligation to. And don't you go spending money you don't have. Oh, so a description's really useful as well. And I don't think we've done this. We want a meta and the name. Can anybody tell me why we might want to include a description of our page right at the top of the page? Content. We're going to set this to, it's told us to give us a useful content attribute. So we're going to describe what's on this screen. And we're going to describe this for 2 reasons. The one is that people using assistive technology can really use this to say, hey, what's this page about? Is it important to me? But also the way that search engines work is little robots search the web, and it gives the little robots for search a good idea. A quiz about, and sometimes you'll see accessibility written A11Y, and that's because accessibility is A, it's got 11 letters, and Y. And I think like little snarky things like that sometimes make it hard to for new developers. Makes it hard for new developers. Let's check our code. Everything's fine. So we're going to have our head. Let's get a title element. And that's important for search engine optimization as well. That's still important for search engines to know what's on your page. But again, it's really good for people coming to your page. And here we've got a title. So we're going to come into our head. And it hasn't told us. In past lessons, it said, oh, your title must be this or that. Here it says, we'll just give it a good title, y'all. I'm going to say A11Y quiz, accessibility quiz. And the reason I've decided to do A11Y is just a reminder. Oh, it wants to have at least 15 characters. Code. Now we've got A11Y accessibility quiz for developers. Yeah. So navigation is a big part of why semantic structure is so important. Header and main aren't just divs. They're not just blank boxes to tab between. They're also, let's do a header. They're also really important for folks looking for navigation landmarks. The same way that if you're walking around in town, you might look for landmarks to navigate. People are going to do the same thing with your, let's format our document, with your web page. Our header element will be used to introduce the page and provide a navigation menu. And the main element here will almost always, I can't think of a reason it wouldn't, have the core content of your, and a main in the body. I was telling you about the main element instead of doing the main element. So the main's almost always going to have your, Jess, did you just do two bodies instead of a main? An absolute goofball of a day. It's all chill. So here we've got our body. Here's where all the visible stuff is going to be. Our header, which is different than our head. Our head's not visible on the page. And then we've got our main as well. Okay, let's go to our next shot. This feels much better. Within our header, we're going to nest. So inside, one image, H1, and nav element. Okay, so our H1, but it says nest. I don't know if it means nest them within each other or just all within the nav element. So I'm going to start with nesting them within the nav element. So we've set the HTML. I think it wanted the image first. What must I always have on a image? Oh, that's far too big, I bet. Alt, and I'm going to call the alt Free Code Camp logo. I'm also going to have the ID of logo. And I bet I'm going to use that ID not just to provide a little additional semantic context. I bet I'm going to style this with CSS because that's too big. And let's also add a nav element. I think this is the first time we've seen this. A nav element is great because this tells someone using assistive technology, hey, the stuff right here, the stuff inside the nav element, this is how you can get around the page. This is how you can know what's going on. Look at this. And we're 10% through. We're having such a laid back morning. So the type of image is an SVG. And you might be familiar with GIFs, which sometimes move, very exciting, or JPEGs as file extensions. But SGV stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. And this is really interesting because this allows us to scale them without warping the image. So we can shrink it without stretching it or squishing it too much. So we can set a path attribute to these. Please note we're in our styles. Right now, the image is a default size, which is too big. And CSS has a maximum function. Okay. So right now, this image they're describing the width would be a maximum. And this is a function, just a preview. It's a little function. Ooh. And when we go on to do JavaScript, we'll talk a lot more about functions. It'll be really, really stressful. Ramon will do all the hard work. So here the width isn't set to a number. The width is set to a function. And the function says, hey, I want this to be a maximum of either 250 pixels or 25% of the view width, whichever is bigger. Okay. So got an ID selector, and that's an ID is a hash, isn't it? And oh gosh, what was it called? It was called logo. We're going to use this width. We're setting the width property. We're using this max function. And the functions in CSS have these little smooth braces. Set a maximum of 100 pixels. These are comma separated, I bet, or 18% of the view width. Oh, and so we saw this jump around, but we can't really see the logo well. This is the logo, and it doesn't look great. I bet we're going to fix this in a second. Our code passes. We can bop on. So this is an important thing. In the free Code Camp style guide, let's get this into the chat. So a style guide, and let's take a look at this as well. We take a little bit of a detour. Didn't begin you. A style guide is exactly what it sounds like. It says, hello, this is our website. And it's most useful if you've got a big team or a lot of open source people work on it. And said, you know what? This is how we do design on this website. So we want it to look and feel like command line interfaces. That means the terminal. And code editors. We want it to look like code editors. Okay. Yeah, but we also use large fonts, high contrast layouts, explicit buttons, and links. So this is telling us what our sort of vibe for how we address um, design is. And it says we've got some ideas on how we do logos. Here's our big logo, and here's our little picture logo. It says, oh, you know what? We mostly use it on dark colors, but if you're using a white background, here's an alternative. Here's one that might work well for you. So let's come back to actually having to do work. And it says, hey, we should retain the aspect ratio of 35:4 and have padding around the text. So first, let's change the background color. We saw that it really wants us to have dark. So we want 0A, 0A, 23. So we have the background color just of the image because we're using the ID selector. And now we're going to use aspect ratio property we haven't seen before. Set it to exactly what it asked us to, 35:4. Oh, and this said, hey, don't warp this. Go ahead and make sure that the size of this image is sort of true to itself. That's very chill. And now we're padding. We're adding padding on all of the sides, so that's nice and chill. And that's going to be 0.4 REM. Amazing, chill, meditative. I think we might be able to check our code. It says green. Oh, this is cheating. This says 1% complete, but it says 1% complete because I went away and came back. So we can go to our next challenge. Everything is super, super fine. So we've got step 10. Make sure the header takes up the full width of the parent. Okay. So we're going to use the header selector. It hasn't told us how. We set the height to 50 pixels. Ooh, do you know what? We said our background color is going to be 1B, 32. Hmm. Oh, do you know what? That needs a hex, doesn't it? Then we're going to set the display to flex. I think this might not work. Yeah, ha ha. So it said the width. So it didn't tell us what to type, but it said take the full width of its parent container. And we've got width. That's be a relative measurement. That's going to be 100. Oh, it's going to be a long day all day. It's going to be 100%. So it's as wide as its parent, and it's 50 pixels high. We can do that. Oh, what's your problem now? Oh, display of flex, not flex box. That's what I get. Submit and bop to the next challenge. Nothing can hurt us. So our H1, we don't have a class or ID on this. We're going to use the type selector. Change the color here to hash this time. F1BE2. Oh, that's very orange. Oh, and let's set the font size. Let's set that to have we're using another function. We're saying, hey, use this function to determine the minimum size. It's like they could be 5 view width or 1.2 EM. Oh, let's check our code. Everything's fine. This is just saying again, hey, if you've got $5, it would be cool. So, we're going to keep going because we've done these once or twice before. So we're going to go a little bit fast. We're doing an unordered list. And that means we need 3 list items. What I'm doing here is I'm building out the structure first. Now I'm going to copy and paste this 2 more times. All right, I'm going to format our document. And right now, we don't have anything. We just have the dots. Let's say info. Still not seeing this. I wonder if we need to do a little tiny bit more styling to make this work. CSS. I wonder where the others are. Oh, these are all links. All the links text items should be wrapped in anchor text. Okay. That's exactly what versions, isn't it? Okay. And because I don't want to type all of this 3 times, I will copy and paste over these. Info, HTML. Because and you know what? I don't know if you could see it. I can kind of see it. The contrast is terrible. All of our links are in a row up in the right-hand corner. I bet that's not what we want. It is giving us a good example that this is not very accessible right now, but let's bop on. Okay, we're going to use, does anybody remember which selector this is? Use, oh. I'm going to actually look this up. I haven't done this in a while. Hmm. Oh, a descendant collector. Descendant selector. Turner, I'm going to make you do this instead of me. Take a descendant combiner. Do we think this might be it? And the thing is, I just don't remember the syntax, so it can't hurt us to look things up. So, syntax, selector 1, selector 2. Well, let's give it a shot. Let's see if this is what they mean. And if we're wrong, if I'm wrong, it probably can't hurt us too bad. It's just programming. Programming can't always hurt us. So we're going to say nav. And oh gosh, did I give you the MDN? Yeah, the MDN suggests I might be able to go nav and then list items within the nav. And it says use Flexbox to evenly space the children. Heck. That's what I get for not doing yesterday. Do more Flexbox. So evenly space them horizontally. Hmm. So I think let's check our code and see what our tests say. We've got our NavUL selector, because sometimes when things don't feel like they're going really chill, hey, so we do need to set our display of flex. I thought, the parent is already set to flex. We don't need it. Display here is set to flex. Y'all are being so big. And this is one thing I really love about failing tests is you can come back and say, hey, go ahead and use justify content to space these easily. A lot of times failing tests, not just in a tutorial environment, but in the real world, can absolutely save your butt. Justify content. We're going to go space evenly. Okay. I don't see them at all. Okay, we definitely have to be doing something to fix this. Grace points out, I'm not picking on you. This is a huge difficulty level jump. If this seems super, super hard for you, that is super okay. I've been messing around I've taught the same class like 3 times, and I woke up this morning and was like, I've completely forgotten how all of this works. It is super normal and only a little scary to forget everything. As long as you don't freak out, it probably can't hurt you. And unfortunately, this one is really big lesson as well. So I think we might get about halfway today. So we're going to create a form. Okay, let's do this as the instructions tell us. We got a form, 3 nested sections. I think they're nested within the form, not nested within each other. I'm going to copy and paste this one. And I want 3 of them. And I think I want a submit. You can hear me double checking. the syntax. So it needs to be inside the form. I'm okay with that. How do I do input type submit? I know that, but where does it go? Okay. Form action. Yeah. So the form action to, that's going to be, I think, where we put this URL. And if I'm wrong, I love being wrong. And down here, oh, Mitch, you've got a really good question. Let's look at it together because I'm not sure either. Here we've got input type. I think that might just be equal to submit. Oh, look how chill that is. So I just got this really good question. He says, oh, I don't understand why it's not the nav UL and not the nav list item. And I think now that I've thought about it for exactly 1 second, I think the reason we're selecting the list is the parent of the list item. So the unordered list is the parent of the list items. And we want to set display to control where the list items, to control where the children are sitting. So if we had done list items, it would have impacted any of their children, but they don't have any children. So let's see if that was right. Okay. The form needs a method. Is it method? Okay. We need a method. It's equal to. Is that all we needed? That was all we needed. So let's just walk through this. We need a form. It needs a method of post. Where the action, so where the post is going is this URL. And here are these blank sections, and here's a submit button. So an input type submit. And we could change what this button says by putting something here. Oh, can we not? Oh, I'll remember how to do that in a hot second. So a role attribute. The role attribute can, and it's a little bit like what it sounds like when you talk about what is, oh, somebody's asking, what happens if we remove the submit tag? Oh, I don't think it's letting me do it in this one. I think the submit button would go away. So the form's not going to work very well with a submit tag. So the role attribute is a little bit of what it sounds like. It says, hey, I'm telling you what the job of this element is. I'm telling you about its role, its duty. And I'm doing this because it makes it easier for assistive technology. So all of these are being given a role. So I'm giving them all a job. I'm giving them the role of region. I say, hey, this is a region on my page. This is the job you're going to be doing. And I'm really telling them this so assistive technology knows what's going on. I've got a green stripe. Everything's fine. Again, it says, hey, if you're a little stressed out, you distract yourself by donating to Free Code Camp. Okay. So the region role requires a label. And we want to put labels on these anyway, right? It's just really good to do. And remember, we talked about labels are really good for accessibility. So screen reader users understand what this region's about. So one way to do that is to add a heading element inside the region and reference it using the ARIA labeled by attribute. Okay, so let's break this down. Inside the region. Okay, so I think that means inside the section. Do we think it means inside the section? Let's check and see if it means inside the section. If not, we can move it. I think it might mean inside the section element, but if not, we can move it into that opening tag and see if that works. Oh, so is to add a heading element inside the region and reference it with the ARIA labeled by attribute. Okay. Add the following ARIA labeled by, and I'm going to copy these to the section elements. Well, let's check this one. And let's see if putting it in here works. Let's check our code. Okay, look. So, we didn't pass, but our tests give us a really good hint to say, "Hey, your second section also needs an ARIA labeled by." And this implies to me that this was an okay place to put it in the first one. So I think our ARIA labeled by attribute goes in here inside our so we've got HTML questions. Inside our opening section tag, and then ARIA labeled by, and then CSS. I really like using tests to give me a hint about amazing. Now it says to put these H2s inside. So we can do this. This can't hurt us. We've done a bunch of H2s. We've done a bunch of heading. Let's format you though. Here we go. So I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to put them all inside the section because this is a mistake I've made a bunch of times, isn't it? Okay, so this looks pretty, let me format you in. This looks pretty easy to read. And now it says to give each H2 suitable content. So we need to use our own good judgment here. I think student info, student info. Questions and CSS questions. I think this might pass. Oh, these need an ID as well, don't they? So the ID should match the corresponding ARIA labeled by. That makes a lot of sense. So the H1, we need an ID that links it to ARIA labeled by attribute. That's fine. That's not going to hurt us. Our H2 down here is going to have the ID of HTML questions. The one down here is going to have, I'm going to come and grab this text. I'm going to copy it. We're going to have the ID of CSS questions. Now maybe it'll work. Everything's fine. Everything's going to be fine. Step 17. I think we're probably going to get to about halfway today. Isn't that cruel? Isn't that unusual? So typeface is really important in accessibility. And we learned some of this with Ramon yesterday. So we're going to change H1 and H2. Does that work like that? To font family. Set that to Miranda. Is there a comma after that? I don't think this is going to pass the first time. Code. Should use the multiple element selector. Let's go get that. Somebody remind me what the multiple one is while I do the rest of this. Is it a comma? Is that what we need to make that work? Fabulous. So it is indeed a comma. And the font family, I'm pretty sure that I had, but did I spell this wrong? Oh, choose another sans serif. Okay, I just thought. Okay, so we've got Tahoma. You should set the first value of proper font family to veranda. The fonts need Fabulous. Now let's use H2 and add a border bottom. Y'all are absolutely mercilessly patient. It is because it's just programming and everything's fine. You want border bottom. I'm just going to paste this. We've got a 4-pixel border. We want it to be solid. It's only on the bottom of each because we're using the board and bottom. And we've got that nice gray color. We're going to check our code. Everything is fine. Let's build out these nav bars. So we're jumping around a little bit. We say, hey, these nav bars are actually going to link to the individual H2 elements. So href. And I think I remember that we do that with a hash. Right? Do we feel right about that? And then a hash for student info. I'm copying it out of the ARIA labeled by just because it's the exact same as the ID, but I'll get it out of the ID. Do you know what? Since I'm not super confident about this, I'm going to check my code. And it says, hey, I have no comment about your first one, but your second one needs to be. So that suggests to me that we got that first one right. So we'll link that too, and we do the hash again. And that's HTML questions, wasn't it? To come in and set the ref value. And remember that's where you're throwing your anchor to. Just set that to hash. And hash means that you're linking to something on the same page. You're not going somewhere else. Questions. All nice and stressful, but we've got that little green bar. This is all super hard, but it can't hurt us. So we're going to start filling out the content of the quiz. So we did 3 developments for the class of info. Okay. So student info. You say, oh, why is this div and not like section or article? And it's a div because we've already got sections, and a section within a section seems a little messy. Oh, let's go ahead and do these one time and copy and paste div. Oh, and then a class. So divs carry the least amount of semantic meaning. That's why we're adding this class in part. But also, they're still useful. You just shouldn't put a bazillion divs on your page. And inside, we're going to nest one label. Typing, huh? Keyboard label. So that's nested within our div. And one input element. So really what we're doing is we're doing this the way I like to do it, whereas we're building out the structure of where we're going to put our content. Because lots of times when you're working as a web developer, you're not going to be the person doing the content. You're going to build out the page. Do you all know about lorem ipsum? So a lot of times you're going to build out a page and you're going to give it weird placeholder text. I'm almost sure we've talked about lorem ipsum, but let me get you a link. It is famously incorrect. Latin text that we use as sort of a placeholder. It used to be a placeholder for printing, and now it's a placeholder for web development, web design, which I think is really, it's just when you need some text, we traditionally put this in. I'm low key, let's format this just so we feel better about it, but I feel okay about this, and it's good to feel okay about this. So it's important to link the input to the corresponding labels. And this feels weird because the label gets a for attribute that does this, and the for attribute is linked to the ID of the label. So think about it as the input gets an ID tag that says, I'm me. And the label shows up, it says, oh, I have a little ID tag. I have a little like label. I have a for attribute that says, I belong to, I'm intended for whoever has this ID. So name, email address, and date of birth. And I love this because this is telling us to input is self-closing. Input is self-closing. I bet it took away the closing tags for me. Thank you so much, Mitch. You are infinitely patient. So here it's asking us to use our own good judgment to say, hey, give me a good info and give me a good for. So the input gets for. I'm just going to build this out. What I want to do is I want to add the ID each time, and I want the for, and I want to make sure these are the same within the same div. Okay. So student name. And we're still going ahead and using the longer form, not just name. We want to be pretty descriptive. We want to spell it right as well. So here we're in our ID class, we've got our label, and our ID for our label is going to be email address. We could say address, but I'm lazy. Hmm. These always have to be the same. And here our label one more time. And you say, okay, but we've done this. Why are we doing it 3 times? We're doing it 3 times because it's going to try and get us used to the muscle memory, even though we don't love it. We're going to be typing this exact same stuff a bazillion times in the future. Date of birth. Let's see if that worked. Let's see how we feel about that. Okay. For our first label element, an appropriate for. Do you just want name? I thought we could be a little bit creative, but maybe. We should get the first label element an appropriate for. Oh, have I swapped them around? Label gets a 4. This is the label for this input. This is the label for this input. This is the label for this input. Oh, what a whole day, all day. The ID belongs to the input. Y'all are infinitely patient. This is the label for this input. This is the label for this input. Everything is chill. Still don't want to work. Give my first label an appropriate text content. It has label. Label gets a for attribute. Contains the ID of the input. Name, email address, and date of birth. Name. Do you want it to be student name? Let's format you so I can see you properly. Mitch is pointing out that we need text inside the label tag. It might be that. Let's check. Name? Let's see if that's been what's been holding us up. Oh, is that what it's saying? If the label element's appropriate for attributes. My loves, as well as text content. This is something we're doing on this step, not the next step. Date of birth. Okay, I was going to put this computer out the window. So that passed and everything's fine. So our best practices for form input should have the appropriate type and name attribute. So give it appropriate a type and name attribute. Okay. So give each input. And I think the type here is equal to text, because that's a text box for a name. And the name attribute, student name. I'm going to put a placeholder. Your name. I'm going to run this test just to see if we've done that first one correctly, to see how that feels. Our second input. Oh, that was cheating a little bit because it does tell us what our second input should be. I think we probably already knew. You all already knew. And the type here, it could be text, but it's not text. It's special text, so it's an email. Name, let's use the same name. It is student email. Let's use the placeholder. Email. Amazing. Oh, let's say your. Let's be polite. And the last one is info, date of birth. Oh, I think the type. Have we used date yet? Date. I think date might work. Let's see. Our name. Birth dates. And our placeholder the December. Oh, uh, let's say. Oh, that's a good question. Are we doing this? Oh, it's day, month, year after my own heart. The 1st of January, uh, 1998. Oh, oh, does that automatically get a placeholder? That's fine. The placeholder in our date of birth didn't show up though, did it? Oh, we've got somebody asking if we can speak Spanish a little bit. I'm so sorry. I don't speak any Spanish, but my fabulous, beautiful. Do you think colleague does indeed speak a little Spanish? So we've got placeholder here. A little. I mean, he speaks Spanish and German and some Japanese. Ramon is just unnecessary. It does indeed pass without a placeholder text for date. So even though we've added a placeholder text to the first input element, it's not actually great for accessibility. So sometimes we want to take that out because people think, oh, I need to type Quincy Larson. So let's remove the placeholder from the first input element, relying on the label to really help us out. So where am I? Where are we? We're going to take out. Do you know who Quincy Lawson is? He's the gentleman who founded Free Code Camp, and he is so nice. He's unreasonably nice. He's like Ramon levels of nice. It's unnecessary. So actually, date of birth is not descriptive. And do you know what? We didn't say DOB, so that's not on us. This is what it assumes we would have done. So it says, hey, arguably DOB is not descriptive enough. This is especially true for visually impaired users because somebody might be using a screen reader and maybe they're using a screen reader and English isn't their first language or English isn't their third language. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a span element and say screen reader only to the current label element. Okay. Boop, boop, boop. Sorry, sometimes I sing to myself. Append a span to the third label. So here's our third label. I want to span. I think a pen means come after. I don't think a span is self-closing. If I'm wrong, we'll just do it right the next time. SR only. I think that's going to be screen reader only. Let's check our code. That's not exactly where it goes. Add our spelling within our third label element. Okay. So this goes inside our label element. And I'm chill with that. Let's check that out. You should have a span element within the third label element. Maybe span maybe span is self-closing. Oh, heck. Hmm. A label? I know that doesn't work. I know we don't need spiky babies within a spiky baby. Huh. Oh. A span should go after data. So we're getting more specific errors now. It says, okay, it does want to be nested inside the label, but it wants to be after where it says DOB. Perfect. It was Mitch after my own heart. You're like, Jess, you're treating this like it's self-closing, and it's not. Within the span element, let's add the text date of birth. And I think this is going to do a really cool thing when we're done. Okay, so here it says DOB date of birth, but I think this SR only class, I think we're going to do something really fancy with it in a second. That passed. Let's go do our fancy thing. So this class that says SR only, I've given you a hint. I've said, hey, I think that we're going to set this to be only accessible to screen readers, only visible or only audible to people using screen readers. And I'm not going to tell you that you can't do something. I'm not going to tell you you're going to forget something. I'm not going to tell you that you're not, because you're very clearly going to be a better developer than I am. But I have never, ever, ever in my long and storied life on this earth ever been able to write all of this out without going and looking up and copying and pasting. So, position absolute. So, this is sort of the magical invocation that you use to make in CSS to make elements only accessible to screen readers. So only people with screen readers get this content if you say position absolute, width 1 pixel, height 1 pixel, no padding, margin is minus 1 pixel. So we're effectively shrinking this little tiny and then taking the margin over it to say, hey, I want this to be imaginary. I want this to have no mass. None of it has mass. I want the overflow to be hidden. Clip rect 000. Don't wrap and don't give it a border. What I'm saying is, in every single way that I can tell the browser not to look at this for visually, for folks not using screen readers, I don't want this to show up. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this because I always forget it. And let's come into this screen reader only class. In the class, we set with a full stop, SR. Only. Ah, and the text for date of birth, the text that has that SR only class is no longer visible on page. This is exactly what we wanted. We're going to check our code. We can go on to the next challenge feeling super chill. Everything's fine. In the second section, let's add 2 elements with a class of question block. Okay. Let's close our div. Okay. Let's add that class. Let's go ahead and, since these are going to be a little samey, we're going to do the same thing and then copy and paste. Within each div question block, add 1 p element. Okay, so we only need 2 of these. Why not close that div? That sounds very much like me. So here I want a p element. Close this as well. Should be incrementing numbers. 1 field set. Class is going to be question. All right. Is field set self-clothing? I always assume stuff isn't self-closing until a test yells at me. Code. Okay. This is saying, hey, you want 2 div elements. And that's exactly what I thought we'd do. I thought we'd copy and paste this. I wanted to make sure there was nothing wrong. Oh, this one needs to be set to 2 because we want to increment it. And incrementing numbers is haha. Oh, yeah. So what's the difference between defining a class and with and without a full stop in CSS? So if you see class without a full stop here you're probably in your HTML file. In CSS, whenever you're talking about a class, so I think we're talking about the difference between creating a class, which is here in the HTML. Oh, this is super busy. Goodbye, preview. Here in the I'm still in the CSS. What a goofball. So here we're creating a class and we don't need the full stop just because that full stop is something we use when we reference a class in CSS. HTML, pointy babies, no full stop. CSS, full stop, no pointy babies. Whew. So in HTML, we create it, we speak it into being. And in CSS, we refer to it. We say, hey, you, come here with the full stop. Yeah. Oh, we got a really good question about what the field set class does. We need to do it. The new development should be, the class should be set to question block. Let's see. I bet it's going to tell us in a whole second. If it doesn't, I'll tell you. New development does have a class of question block. Okay, the field set should be, the class of the field set should be question, and the class of the divs should be question block. let's format this because this looks very messy. And check our code. And this works this time. So field set classes question, div classes question block. Let's see. Each field set, and this is really interesting. The field set, I think, is going to be, let's get the MDN for this as well. MDN field set. And it's an element used to group several controls as well as labels within a web form. So this is saying, hey, I've got some questions that go together. I want to group the controls with the labels together. I want to keep these questions together so that somebody using assistive technology knows that they're friends. So, oh gosh, and we're going to be winding down in a little while. So if anybody has any more questions, go ahead and hit me with them. I mean, don't actually hit me, please. Within each field set, nest one legend and one UL with 2 options. I think 2 options means 2 list items. So we've got our field set here. I'm going to come in. I said a legend. And I never remember what's self-closing and what's not. So let's do it as non-self-closing. And if it's not, we'll just do it the other way. Start our unordered list and close our unordered list. We've got a list item. We're going to close our list item. Start our list item. And close our list item. I'm just going to run the test just to see that nest one. Oh, so it's giving me an error about the second one, which implies I did the right one right. Somebody's asking what our next stream is in Indian Standard Time. Our next stream is Monday morning, 1 hour before it is right now. That's not Indian Standard Time. So we stream Monday to Friday at exactly this time for about an hour. And then we've got some guests that come in sometimes. And so we've got the field set legend. Yeah. So we can copy this. Yeah. And we can come into the field set again. So we stream about an hour. Oh, Ramon, can I be a bother and ask you to grab the link to the schedule? That's what it's called. It's a schedule. We're going to submit and go to our next challenge. Everything is terribly. We're going to do like 2 more. And then I'm going to be so cruel. I'm going to be monstrous. I'm going to abandon you. Let's try and get just a couple more. So the field set needs an adequate name. So let's get, and both of our unorderedness lists need a class of answers list. So I don't know what the appropriate name for each field set is. Field set name. Guess I'm just going to call it question for now. I know it's a question, but I don't know what the question's about. And the reason we're setting these is so that when the data gets sent back to us, we know what the deal is. And right now, I don't know what the deal is. We're definitely not going to want these names to be the same. Finally, use a legend to caption the content. Okay. So both of the unordered lists need a class of answers list. We could do that. Unordered list, UL. We're really going to use the errors to find out what it wants from us, because this feels a little ambiguous, right? Here's our other unordered list. And it may be that this makes a heck ton of sense, but it doesn't make a heck ton of sense to me. You should give my first okay, text content. Oh, so it actually wants me to create a new question. Okay, use the legend to caption it. What is the best HTML element? Oh, that's very pretty. And you know what? I'm going to give this a much longer name than we would usually. Let's check our code again and see. Okay, so we need to do the same thing to our second legend. This is okay. Our second legend, What is the hardest HTML element to remember? Let's see that pop up here. And we're also going to change the field set name for this one to hardest to remember. It passes. Everything's fine. Nothing can hurt us. We are immortal. We're not immortal. Continue to be careful in the world. So within each nest element, we're going to nest one label element. Let's do just this last one, and then I'm going to be terrible and monstrous and abandon you halfway through. And when I finish, ask me any questions you have. But don't forget that when I say abandon you, that we're in the Discord, we're in the forum, other people are too, and they're smarter than me. I'm abandoning you for a reason, not just because I'm lazy. Within each list element, nest one label and one input. Okay. So I think we're going to have our choices in here. So I got our one label. And we do remember that input is self-closing, huh? This y'all reminded me a hot second ago. And the label, the input should have an appropriate type. And these are true false questions. So I think maybe the type could be radio button. Did that not work? It's just radio, isn't it? It's just radio. It's just radio. Yeah. So because I am the laziest baby to ever live, I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other one. And I'm going to copy and paste this again down here because, oh, Aria, hello, my love. Okay, one input element within the first label element. So let's see within the first. So this is something we messed up. Wait, you love how when it goes right, it's me, and when it goes wrong. Aria, Bubba, you want to come up here? When it goes wrong, it's you. I've definitely got to stop calling my cats Bubba. So what we're going to do is nest one label element within the appropriate, within each. Oh, the input element goes inside the label element is what you're saying. Okay. Let's do it with the first one and see if that's what it wanted. The second. So that is what it wanted. So we put it inside the label, which I did exactly zeroed. Do you know what your friend is? Your friend is Command Z, because that will always undo the last thing that you just messed with. Coming down here. I'm going to cut you because you're in the wrong place. And we're going to paste you inside the label because that's where you live. That makes sense. Put you. You know what? You know what we're doing? Absolutely not. We're just resetting this. Sorry, Missy. I've got a very, very assertive cat directly in front of me. Yeah? Who is going to go sit on the chair. So we're going to do this one more time, and we're going to do it right. So inside our list element, we have a label, and we really only have to do this one time because we're going to copy and paste. A label, and then our input element with the appropriate type. Everything's fine. Oh, everything's not fine. So I'm going to copy and paste this, the label, and I'm going to put it inside each list item. Okay. Missy. Thank you, Missy. So I'm about to raffle off a free cat if you don't stop getting in my face. So, that's worked. And this is one thing that can be really, really hard is getting stuff exactly where it goes and spelling stuff right can both be super stressful and challenging. So submit and go to our next challenge, but we're not going to do this together. What we're going to do is do question and answer and uh, move my cat so I no longer have cat butts in my face. So your homework, unfortunately, is going to be, ma'am, ma'am. And this is why my microphone is consistently unplugged as well, just because there's space for cats between. Does anybody know the computer support term PEBCAC? Problem between keyboard, uh, problem between chair and keyboard? Aha. So PEBCAC is a kind of jokey computer term for a user error. Um, and this is a kind of a jokey way to say, hey, there is a technical problem here, but the problem is the user. And it says the problem exists between the monitor and chair at PEBMAC. And here, for me, the problem exists between cat and keyboard. So let's take a look and see if we've got any questions. Unfortunately, your homework today is going to be a lot. It's because I am the Ramon helpfully points out PEBCAC. It is because Ramon is a very nice teacher and I'm very mean. Um, that's not the only reason I'm giving you a lot of homework to do on your own. This sounds incredibly cruel, but struggling by yourself and not quitting and breaking through these question and answers is really important. Adia, is it really important? Is really important for learning to work independently, not just on the projects. The thing is, we're not abandoning you. I'm also a little limiting because it is an hour and I do have to go work my day job. So let's go ahead and reshare this and just talk about, and the big thing I want to push about your homework is you don't have to do this all at once. This is an especially difficult section. Oh, and I'm going to give you a ton of homework. I'm going to give you mean homework. So where am I? Who are we? And then on Monday, we'll learn about tribute page. We got a lot of feedback that the first project was super, super hard. The first project was super, super hard. So the survey form by itself, too hard. And we had some Couchbase partner streams that showed us how to redo that using JavaScript, which was also really hard. We think those videos are going to be more useful to come back to at the end of the boot camp to say, hey, I want to start experimenting with JavaScript. On Monday, for our Couchbase session, we're going to do the exact same project we've done. We're going to do the survey form again, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do that um, and I'm going to do it without the JavaScript. I'm just going to copy and paste the code over, and I'm going to show you how to push it live and connect to database. I'm terrible at JavaScript, so I promise it'll be much more accessible. On Tuesday, our Couchbase streams are going to be doing this tribute page. The tribute page, there's no database, there's no JavaScript, there's no backend. This one can't hurt you. This one's really cool. But your homework is, if you can, get as much of this finished as you can. So we got a little bit less than halfway because we got less than halfway because I'm a monster. But as always, it's really, really important to spend a big chunk of time being really gentle to yourself. So the world is hard and stressful. So please be as gentle to yourself as you can. Take at least one day off this weekend if you've got the ability. People work jobs. It's not always possible. Oh gosh, we've got a really good question asking, can you do some homework styling for the Bad Website Club? So you absolutely can. The Bad Website Club is on GitHub. You're allowed to send us an issue or a pull request. And if you've never heard of these, don't worry. We'll talk about them later in the boot camp. Somebody's telling me not to call myself a monster. I promise I do bad things all the time, all the time. Ramon's helpfully got us the repo. It's github.com, bad website club with hyphens, and then badwebsiteclub.github.io. Y'all is saying, don't call myself a monster, but you wait and see these last projects. Bwahahaha. I'm going to let you go to have the most relaxing day that you're able to give yourselves. If you're watching this in a replay, amazing. You've got even more time to be lovely to yourselves. I'm going to let you go. I will see you on Monday, and I hope all of you have a really relaxing time. Bye from both of us, or all of us, including the cat.